Welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, my series of Freemasonry and Satanism. I've read probably 150, 200 books, and this series is for me to try to tell you a little bit about the books I read, so you don't have to spend 5-10 years reading all those books. I think the information is important. I think some of it's concerning. And this one here is about the Journal of the Amercian Society for Psychical Research. And it's got some general articles, Scientific Theories and Psychic Research by James Hyslop. Some Incidences by James Hyslop. Incidences and Experiments by Harry Mills. And this was 1915 in June. In the back here it says that if you want to, the Amercian Society for Psychical Research is one of the three sections comprising of a larger body, the Amercian Society for Scientific Research, which aims ultimately to embrace experimentations and research into psychopathology and psychotherapeutics, fields of scientific interests correlated with psychical research. Okay, so it's an old thing. You can get these online. Just look up Journal of the Amercian Society. I thought I'd breeze through it. As usual, I did my highlighting. And my point of these here is in this series, Freemasonry and Satanism. And in my essays I write on press releases debating the issues that are put out in the news. 90+% seems to be fabrication and lies. So anyways, on a lot of the essays I put on there, comments, in the blog section, you've probably posted some, but a lot of people say there's no God. That's what they type in there when I talk and I say people, the commandments and people shouldn't kill people. And you get a lot of ridicule and a lot of people saying there is no God. So I thought, when you do this psychical research and you're communicating with people who have died, maybe some people don't think there's a God, and I guess on the other side it's just helter-skelter and anarchy and chaos and the souls run around crazy and all that. I don't think so. So anyways, as the Amercian Society for Psychical Research, honorary fellows, Balfour of London, Balfour of England, Gerald Balfour, A.J. Balfour, Barrett from Dublin, Emily Dijon from France, William Crookes from England. Just a lot of people there, you can see. So, Scientific Theories and Psychic Research. Two very recent articles have discussed some of the metaphysical theories of matter and the subject of psychic research. One of the articles is in the Unpopular Review. I guess that was the name of a magazine, like Times magazine. This magazine was called Unpopular Review for April-June, and the other in the Harvard Theological Review, another document, magazine. Alright, the former is an unsigned article dealing with many of the theories of Poincare and Sir Oliver Lodge, some of their theories into psychic research. So let's read a little bit about this. The critic of them shows the spirit of skepticism, which has been the destroyer of many types of metaphysics. So I guess there's a lot of skepticism in metaphysics, just like there these days in the USA, with the New Age evolving, the New World Order, and the death and mayhem in the Middle East, and the economic and financial chaos. There's skeptics in metaphysics too. Although, I'll have to go over another article with you on another Nexus magazine article. And it shows pretty clearly that holistic medicine is a whole lot better than the pharmaceuticals prescriptions from the major corporations, they kill at a huge rate, where the homeopathic medicines, the herbs and old-fashioned remedies are healing people much better. We'll go over that. The same author then attacks Sir Oliver Lodge for the scope he gives to the ether as an explanation to the physical phenomenon of the cosmos. And I'm just going through this, highlighted some things, and I'll read the highlight thing and discuss it. The critic of Sir Oliver Lodge says that science must deal with material things. That's what they teach people these days. If you can't see it, it's not real. But you can't see electricity, and it's real. You can't see wireless communications for your phone or your computer, but it's real. Anyways, just thoughts in my head. There are 16 volumes of the Amercian Society's Proceedings and Journal, whether good or bad, that will have to be taken into account in that examination. So if anybody wants to say ghosts are not real, or spirits are not real, or people who do not survive death, there are 16 volumes of material which should probably be reviewed before you strike a firm opinion. And he was this skeptic was once a member of the old Amercian Society for a year or two after its foundation. He became convinced there was no prospect for valuable discoveries, so he gave up and he became a skeptic and started battling these people. I know that the media has taken Christianity and other religions out of the schools and the public place and given us, it seems, Satanism, symbols, Illuminati, everywhere. Can't miss it. Anyways, back to the book here. We might believe anything rather than believe in survival on such a fact. It is the selective unity of large masses of facts that determines it. So I agree. So I guess with these people with 16 volumes, and they started the Psychical Research Societies in 1888. Which, interestingly enough, it started in England around 1840 and ended around 1940 prior to World War II. And a lot of people know Hitler was into the occultic secrets. So when they did communicate with the other side, you know, who are they talking to? The good guys or the guy in the red suit with the horns? The demons. Anyways, I find it the opposite of cheering. That's what he says about the psychic research. The impression which I get of the present condition of Myers, if I take the message at their face value, is that of a dismal state of separation, exile, or incarceration. So when Mr. Myers was communicating from the other side in a seance, this skeptic says, I find the opposite of cheering. So he says, I find it the opposite of good. The impression which I get of the present condition of Myers, if I take the messages at their face value, is that of a dismal state of separation, exile, or incarceration. So I guess that's how Mr. Myers defines or describes the other side in a seance. This skeptic doesn't like that description. Therefore, it can't exist. He does, and I'm reading the book now. This quotation is the whole crux of Professor Hall's position. He does not like the kind of existence which he thinks the evidence indicates, and he is also totally misrepresents both the interpretation of the investigators and the nature of life supposedly indicated by the evidence. In the first place, suppose the life is one of separation, exile, and incarceration. So I guess maybe there's some sort of bad place to go for bad people and good place to go for good people. And this guy is listening to the seances and seeing who goes where, and I guess personally it has outraged him enough to have his skeptical opinion. So in the first place, suppose the life is one of separation, exile, and incarceration. What has that to do with the problem? You know, we're trying to verify that they are, and I've been a psychic researcher for years, that, you know, the sciences exist, And just because the results are not making you happy, you can't say the science doesn't exist. Our desires have nothing to do with establishing our convictions. Moving on. Moreover, Professor Hall, if he had really studied all the facts and theories advanced by psychic researchers, would have found that there is yet no evidence for his view of that life as one of separation, exile, and incarceration. Quite the contrary is proved by it, if anything but proof. Nothing is more insisted on by those claiming to prove their identity. During a seance, they prove who they are. That the fact that it is a social life of a very advanced kind. So when you die, your spirit goes to a very advanced culture. Moving on here. We do not know the conditions of the communication beyond the fact that they have come through a living organism. This may apply to the transmission of earthly memories, which are necessarily to prove personal identity, the one requisite for proving survival. But it does apply to any account of conditions that are supersensitive and may not have any but the remotest resemblances to the physical world. Now, we cannot pass negative judgment on the nature of that life unless we know what it is like. So, you can't pass judgment on what it's like to be in your spirit form until you know what it's like. Before we were born, when we were born, and the spirit was put into the human body, because all people are bioelectrical computers, and they have a soul inside, and without the soul, you would pop over and drop, and your body wouldn't operate. It's like a battery in a cell phone or a radio. Without the battery, the cell phone or radio won't work. In my opinion, of course, and a lot of other researches and books I read. The author's view of it seems to be that if it is an effort to ascertain whether the future life is a heaven or a hell. There you go. He does not find it that it appears to be a desirable thing, and that if that would enable us to escape either the fact or the belief in it, and as if that justified neglecting the problem. So again, during the seances, it seems that from my research, one doctor was a really good doctor and did a lot of charity work, and when contacted from the other side, this is not in the book, my other book I read, he described it as a fantastic world to live. He was so excited, he wanted to die in that world and come back to this world to tell people about it. And another lady who was a very rude, mean person, and I guess had actually killed her husband or something, and she described where she was at on the other side as a dismal place. The sun never shined. Anyways, so I guess if you were seeing these things and knowing yourself, one would make you happy and the other would make you sad. And again, this relates to my series here, Freemasonry and Satanism. The primary problem is not that what such a life is like, whether agreeable or disagreeable, but whether personal consciences persist after what we call death has taken place. We have to choose between the materialistic and spiritual explanation of personal consciousness. Alright, here we go. Now, psychic research seeks facts to ascertain whether this consciousness survives death. So for 100 years they did this research. There's volumes of books. It must have proof of its identity to affect this. If any individual consciousness survives the ordeal of death, and if communication with it by telepathy or otherwise be possible, it should be able to prove that identity by telling incidences in its bodily life of the past. So if you're communing with somebody and somebody's in the room who knows you personally, you should be able to divulge some things that only you and him would know, or her. They are all the more important if they represent incidences known only to the deceased communicator and the living recipient, as I said. The proof is possible only by trivial facts. So when they were talking to these people, it was just little tiny trivial facts. Somebody might have burnt his hand cooking on a stove way back, and who would have ever talked about it? But those two people would have known. No doubt it may be desirable, or if not desirable, interesting to obtain messages about the nature of the spiritual life and the general information about that world. place where your spirit goes. But the man who would accept that without verification would only be fit for the madhouse. Alright, besides, we know what the conditions are for getting messages through, accurate messages, especially the mental conditions of the spirit himself that may affect the message and the opinions expressed. If a man retains his personal identity, and if there are what are called earthbound spirits, who may be described or so occupied with their earthly memories as to be in a dream state, and this may take the form of pure hallucinations such as insane philosophies or cranky ideas, are with the living. The contact with such personalities with a medium might result in the communication of all sorts of insanities about that world. Indeed, we are more likely to get systems of that kind from the earthbound than from the higher types. So it seems to me from my research that at least, it's probably more than 3, but let's just talk about 3. There are people who have done evil deeds or bad deeds and didn't care about other people. And when they were communicated, they didn't appear to be in a place where they were happy. And then there were people who did very benevolent things and sacrifices in this world. And they described the other side as awesome. And then there were the people, apparently, when it's not your time to go, say you commit suicide, you wind up being earthbound until it was your time to check out. So you're an earthbound spirit. And again, those type of personalities, as it says here, can be a kind of very unhappy personalities. Because the more intelligent personality would be under no illusions as to the nature of the spiritual world, and would know the difficulties of correctly stating the case as well, being cautious about it. So apparently when you leave this world, if you are, I hate to be blatant about it, if you were stupid and a fool in this world, when you're communicated by a medium in a seance, you're probably still going to talk and sound like a stupid, foolish person. So I always like to tell people, they talk to guides, spirit guides, masters, they see something, hear something. A lot of people out there who say that. And I'm always and they think that's because they're blessed and they're communicating with something. And I'm always saying, man, you got to be careful because you don't know who you're communicating to. And the motive behind the other entity, just like on Earth, there are good people and bad people. In every religion, Jewish is good people and bad people. Christianity, good people, bad people. Atheists, good people, bad people. Muslims, good people, bad people. There we go, back to the psychic research. But it seems that there is no difference between the ordinary credulous person and most of our so-called scientific people, except that the one believes in a certain conception of spirit and the other does not. And they're both probably wrong. I shall only say that it is significant in quality and quantity to convince any man, all those volumes and 100 years of research, to convince any man except the ignorant and the prejudiced one, the spiritual hypothesis has no rival whatever except the telepathic theory. Okay, then we got mesmerism or hypnotism, suggestion, and now telepathy runs the course for respectable people who have not the courage to believe in real explanations. And in my other videos, we talked about the government being into remote viewing, hypnotizing people, leaving their body, and spying on the enemy, spying on you. Large corporations spying on each other. So apparently there's a huge advancements in psychical research like there is in electricity and other technologies in the last 100 years. Because if you think about it, even now at 2014, no, it had been 100 years ago, they didn't have flat screen TVs, they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have any of these technologies. And for, a couple thousand years it's like this, and then in the last 100 years it goes off on a tangent. Why? Back again. Neighbor of mine just walked by, doing this video out on the side yard. Alright, moving on. No intelligent and dispassionate man can critically examine the massive evidence accumulated by the societies for psychical research without recognizing that the spiritual hypothesis has scientific claims and really explains. So Theosophists and spiritualists talk about a spiritual body or an ethereal organism. All that this present writer who wrote this article claims is that the present stream of consciousness survives with its memories. Alright, and it says here, it may be any one of three things: a functional activity of an absolute God, or an absolute supreme being, a functional activity of an ethereal or spiritual body, or a functional activity of a spaceless point of force after the conceptions of Leibniz or Boscovich. It is the continuance of consciousness that is the quintessential, not the special metaphysical doctrine about it. Alright, so then they got a couple incidences here where they're actually communicating with somebody on the other side. The subliminal talk suddenly came to an end, and the automatic writing began at once with Dr. Hodgson as control, as the sequel soon showed. And as you can see, I just highlighted some stuff. So the control would have been the medium, somebody that seems to be able to go into a hypnotic state real easy, and asked to speak to somebody on the other side, and sometimes those people come forward and they try to prove the identity and all that stuff. Because it is so difficult to prove the source of the power and manifestations which are being continuously thrust upon the consciousness of the world, and because such proof would be the most valuable asset which man might aid to life, we work unceasingly with the bits of microscopic bits and evidential material, piece by piece, made the foundation of which the foundation of the living God must stand. Yes, that is why I came and why I persist in this effort. Even now, it is so much a part of my thought that I am weighed with it and feel my ballast too much to rise to the free ethereal air where I find expression easier and less absorbing. This is this is automatic writing. Somebody holds a pencil like a Ouija board, and the other ethereal power writes it out. And this person on the other side just said all that. And I'm not reading everything. The whole atmosphere is charged with vital fluid, and the room was also charged for that purpose. So they have to set the conditions up right for these beings to communicate at a seance. But I have been in the room during the greater part of the work, and I hope my influences have been of some use. You know, they used to send for me sometimes when they got mixed up in the old days. They would sometimes send me out of the room and then call me back when the need for a stronger personality on the earthly side was felt. The boy was in a state of determination and followed up the trail and was trying to impress something on the atmosphere, and we are helping him. Strange if you should be unfolded as light. But if you had no light, you would not have been chosen to lead the work. So apparently, if you, I guess you earn a rising of where you're going to wind up in the other side, a higher evolution of your spiritual being, it's called having the light. Possibly the boy could not, owing to the manner of his death, apparently he killed himself or something, used his memory so well for proving his identity, he had to resort to events which he could remember and send much better than his terrestrial past. So apparently people who did sad things, bad things, they didn't have enough energy or light to be able to actually go and communicate, initiate communication, like to his mother or something. It's just fascinating to read these opinions, and we're going to read some more. I'm taking a break. Alright, here's one of the seances, what they said. A Jew, 21 years of age, his name begins with an R, he didn't put the whole name in here, Parkinsburg, West Virginia. This young man was deeply attached to his home people and suffered at a time when nostalgia. He came to my room Wednesday night and told me he was much troubled. He asked me to induce unconsciousness and send him to his home in order that he might obtain definite information. This I did, and after a few moments of apparently dull, heavy sleep, his face brightened with a happy smile. He was told to omit nothing, to detail all he saw and heard, all of which I took down in shorthand, but which I omit here of no importance. He said his mother, sister, and 5 visitors were sitting down at the table for a late supper. There was cheese, sausage, beer, bread, and bananas. And remember, this was overseas, a great distance away. So, okay, R was suggested into unconsciousness and was told to visit the house of a neighbor, distance about 2 miles, and tell me what the young ladies were doing. A broad, sheepish smile overspread his features, and he said, before I could stop him, Mrs. A and Mrs. R were doing something. So apparently he had gone to the home, and whatever they were doing, it made him smile, and obviously it might have been a little embarrassing, so they told him to stop. Okay, and then later on, the people were asked. I asked Miss R if it was her custom to soothe her mistress to sleep by sitting at the bedside, passing her fingers through the hair. Her face flushed as she became furious. She examined. Even the privacy of a girl's bedroom is not sacred from such a man as you. So apparently the hypnotist wanted to prove what this one man under hypnotism had said. So he went and queried the girl, who was 2 miles away in this case, and the 2 girls were on the bed. One girl was running her hands through the other girl's hair so she could fall asleep. How nice. Alright, and so I'd like to now just take a little sidebar here, like I usually do, and remind you that we had this in one of my other videos, where the police and the CIA, FBI, the governments are into psychic research and can solve crimes with psychic detectives. So it's almost foolish to me to anybody who can think they can get away with a crime. And David Morehouse we went over this book. Was a psychic warrior, wrote that book. And Remote Viewing by Tim Rifat. These are people who worked for the government, got out, and then I wanted to bring to your attention, if they could do this from 1840 to 1940, and they're into all this psychic research, and they were communicating with the other side, did they find out something that caused them to be building all these FEMA detention camps all over the United States, buying millions of hollow point bullets, causing all the chaos in the world, creating the New World Order? I mean, we got books like this published, The Population Bomb, in 1970, by Paul Ehrlich, who's way into depopulation and the New World Order. And I'm just saying, I like to put, everything has to be connected to me. And The Limits of Growth in 1969 by Meadows, and the Club of Rome, another fraternity, like the Freemasons or whatever. So they're putting all these books out, talking about too many people and a population bomb. And we also did the many videos, 5 videos, on these New Age books that I had, where the Freemasons, Scottish Rite, were into all the occultic activities. And we did 5 of these. So it just seems to me something's a little suspicious here. If they can communicate on the other side and it's gone high-tech like all the other technologies, what did they find out? What are they preparing for? What are we humans in for? So we go through a little bit more of this book here. Again, this is 1915. So these people were seriously into this stuff. What did they find out? What are they up to? And why are they keeping it from the people? My friend Miss W., a girl of 17 or 18, was seized with an uncontrollable desire to write. She went to the table, picked up a pencil, and automatically wrote, "You are in great danger." So some spirit, other entity, possessed her enough to Make her want to go write that down. And remember, in the Christian religion, in the Bible, Jesus cast out at least a dozen spirits. You can just Google that or search that online. Jesus casting out demons. And there's many websites that have 12 examples, and they cite each one. So I'm saying the Bible matches with this stuff also. And she was very frightened, thinking it referred to her mother, who was on a train at the time. The writing continued, "No, it is not her mother. She is all right. It is you. But do not be afraid. You are protected." Well, that's nice. So I guess it's wise to be a good person and believe in the higher power, because I suppose you can be protected. The next day she was passing through a belt of timber when a drunken scoundrel fired a Winchester .42, the ball passing within a few inches of her spine, striking an oak tree, glancing and striking the path immediately in front of her. The drunken scoundrel then burst out laughing, turning to his companion and said, "There, I told you. I could shoot close without hitting her." Police were notified, but the men had made their escape. So she had that warning the day before. Alright, here's another case here. I am James, and I have been informed, can communicate through you. Tell Professor. So this lady received this message after the death of Professor James. She received this message. I am James. I've been informed, can communicate through you. And she was afraid of the notoriety of being popular, people finding out that she was psychic, and did not deliver this message to the professor, and was astonished a few days later to see in the newspapers the same message had been transmitted through a professional medium. Okay, her father died, and communicated with her frequently by making dots and dashes of Morse code. Her father was a Morse code communication operator, and she had learned how to do it, distinctly audible through the back of her neck, and on one occasion warned her of great danger attending her adopted daughter. Okay. Moving on. I could do more of these right now, but I think that's enough for you to get. There's just many more examples. Maybe I'll just do one more here. In the year 1881, a cousin, Rosella France, was staying with me in her home at Fort McHenry, Maryland, her father being a commander of the fort. We were expecting the arrival of our cousin, Miriam Martin. And she said she had a painful dream, and the dream was that she saw the girl going out fishing, and a fire broke out in the cabin of the boat, and the captain of the boat blamed himself and threw himself overboard and committed suicide. So anyways, that was 9 o'clock in the morning, and the friend arrived around noon. I'm just ad-libbing here, and was in a bad way, very distraught, and her friend said, "Why? What's wrong with you?" And she said, I was on a boat, and the cabin got on fire, and the captain jumped overboard, and he screamed as he went down, dying. So, all kinds of incidences here. And there are other books here, and this guy did book reviews, like I do book reviews. Back in 1915, and two books that he reviewed was Glimpses of the Next State by Vice Admiral Ersborne Moore, Watts and Company, London. And the other book was Ghost of a Solid Form. And I went online at Abe's Used Books, and I tried to find Glimpses of the Next State. And I found one for $200. Suffice it to say, I didn't buy it. Well, I have some troubling information. I was reading another edition of Nexus Magazine, Volume 20, August, September 2013. And remember, my series is Freemasonry and Satanism, and the Freemasonry people seem to be in charge of a lot of the government stuff going on all over the world, and they know about all this psychic stuff, and so some of the troubling things that are going on in the world, these people know about and are doing or covering up, all for money, gold it seems. But here's one article in this magazine. You see, I highlight this stuff that I deem as important. Mobile phones and Wi-Fi use the exact same frequencies as your microwave oven. Mobile phones and Wi-Fi use the exact same frequencies as microwave ovens. They are harmful to the human biology because these frequencies act on water in the human body. Referred to British military intelligence. For years, he has worked in microwave and stealth warfare, and his particular expertise is on the impact of this radiation on health and brain functioning. The power used by the mobile phones and Wi-Fi is greater than a microwave oven. Put a mobile phone or Wi-Fi but the mobile phone and Wi-Fi have no shielding. Using your phone is like using an open microwave oven. Sorry about my stuttering sometimes. This is another article. MasterCard has been a firm supporter of the Central Bank of Nigeria cashless policy, and we share a vision of a world beyond cash. So like the biblical thing, again, getting back to the psychic thing, is there a God or not, or spirits or not? The Bible says, you get the 666 mark of the beast, or you won't be able to buy or sell. And like it says here, MasterCard has been a firm supporter of the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, cashless policy, as we share a vision of a world beyond cash. That's what the president of the MasterCard in that area said. So it's coming to a neighborhood near you, apparently. It's already here in a lot of places. GM rice has contaminated global food supply. A recent entry into the GM contamination register explains that between the year 2006 and 2007, 3 different varieties of illegal GM rice, genetically modified, most likely by, this one here is by American multinational corporation Bayer, like Bayer aspirin. But of course Monsanto has a huge reputation, and these folks are taking over all the seed banks of the world and are genetically modifying foods which are not friendly to your human body. And again, this is my series, is Freemasonry and Satanism, and some of this stuff seems kind of sinister, i.e. Satanism. 3 different varieties of illegal GM rice, none of which has ever been approved for cultivation or consumption anywhere in the world, were identified in more than 30 countries worldwide. Is somebody trying to kill all the people? Do they think there's too many people? These are only a couple books. There's plenty of books on this stuff. They want to depopulate the world. I went to the Georgia USA Guidestones a week ago, and I took pictures, and I'm going to put it in one of my videos. They're there, and the town that I went to, where they're at, it seemed kind of like a sad town. It seemed like the people weren't happy. The downtown was empty. The buildings were in disrepair. Interesting. Through all official field trials of Frankenrice, that's what I call the genetically modified seeds, Franken food, Frankenrice like Frankenstein, supposedly ended in, the field trials ended in 2002. The 3 detected GM rice varieties somehow made their way into the general rice supply, which has had a major negative impact on U.S. rice exports. A lot of countries have banned this stuff, including Russia and over there in Europe. But in either case, vagrant GM rice planted in open fields for testing purposes definitely escaped, and now U.S. rice farmers are suffering the consequences as the European Union, Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines and other countries have placed strict limits on GM rice imports. Both Russia and Bulgaria, on the other hand, have completely banned all rice imports from the USA. Alright, just thought some of these articles in here were worth adding to this video because there's more horrible things going on here. According to documents, this one here says state shock. All social media shared with NSA. According to documents obtained by The Guardian, PRISM would appear to allow GCHO to circumvent the formal legal process required in Britain to seek personal material such as emails, photos, and videos from an internet company based outside the USA. So apparently when a country's, I read here, when, like the USA, they have laws providing security and privacy. So apparently the laws, they've altered the laws that say that, like getting a judge's permission to do a wiretap. One of the loopholes is if you're doing a joint investigation or whatever, you don't have to abide by the law. You can just say that the other country did it. So the USA has an agreement with, say, the UK company, so they can get all this data circumventing the law. And the UK country says they're doing a joint meeting or working program with the US company. And over in the UK and the European Union, they can circumvent those laws and scoop up everybody's data on the social media. These people are just snakes. Hey, Freemasonry and Satanism, the snake. Okay, eventually all new phones, tablets, televisions, cars, and other devices that rely on Android will include NSA code, said agency spokeswoman Vinay Vines in an emailed statement. So again, you can go online and buy Nexus magazine, and I'm not have nothing to do with them. But for $40 or $50, they have a disc where you can get every issue since the magazine came into being. But this is August-September 2013, volume 20, number 5. You can order it and they'll ship it to you from Australia. And it says here that few terrorists nabbed by the FBI are real. So all this time since 9/11, they have actually, it says here in this article by who? Alternet.org, A-L-T-E-R, that there are actually no actual cases of terrorists caught. That all the ones that were caught were people who were stupid, and they were approached in, city areas and said, hey, you want to get back at these people, we'll give you some money and weapons, and they were duped by the FBI and the CIA. These are the cases that are, then as the guy pulls the trigger and it doesn't go off, they arrest him and blame him, according to this article. And that's all the stuff that's been in the news by this investigator who said all of the cases were all the ones that were set up staged cases. There were no real cases of real terrorists with real plans and real bombs. Alright, Russian forces to help secure U.S. mass events. Oh, this is great here. Russian forces will provide security at mass events in the United States as part of an emergency situations agreement between Russia and the USA. So don't you believe what you see in the newspapers when they're saying there's this animosity or fighting going on. In the back of the room, they're planning something, it seems to me, my opinion, still have an amendment right in the United States of America, that so the Russians are going to be in charge of security, including presidential inaugurations, State of Union addresses, and international meetings such as the G8 summits. The meeting also covered other kinds of natural emergencies such as extreme weather and experiences experienced in Russia and the USA. So they have a treaty now, and there actually is a lot of rumors on the internet that they have a lot of Russian or Chinese forces in different parts of the United States training with our military people. And it makes me wonder. Ah, here you go. Student experiment finds seeds won't grow near cell phone radiation. So these kids, for a science thing in high school now, the results were blatantly obvious. I'm reading from this here. The cress seeds planted in the room away from the router thrived. On the other hand, the cress seeds placed near the router had not grown. And there's a picture here too. So clearly the seeds in the room with the router didn't grow, and the seeds in the room with no router thrived. You can see how green they are. Alright, so the effects of wireless technologies on wildlife, livestock, and pets. Now, the government knows all this, and you've seen all these books and all this stuff that they know about that you don't know about. And they control almost everything. The lodges are in every country of the world. They're the ones who get your politicians. I did videos on these books, The New Age. So they know about this stuff in these articles, and they cover it up. He explains, anyways, in this article, he explains that microwave and radio frequency pollution create long-term health effects of wildlife because of the phone masts are irradiating continuously. So those towers you see everywhere. Research studies show that harmful effects have been observed in an array of animals, including bees, worms, fruit flies, amphibians, rats, monkeys, birds, bird eggs, and variety of stock. Again, I'm not trying to read all this to you. But these first few articles in this Nexus magazine I read last week just blew me away. Article after article after article of the people who are in charge of our world know all this stuff. There was one here that says West was prepared for attack on Syrian crisis before the crisis started. So before the Syrian overthrow ever began, a former foreign minister of France, Roland Dumas, has revealed that a plot was devised by several Western countries, primarily Britain and France, to topple the Syrian government even before the crisis started in Syria. Get your own Nexus magazine and teach this, read this and show it to other people, and let's wake up the world. So apparently this guy, Demas, was invited to a party where he was asked if he would like to participate in preparations for the attack on Syria to topple the government. Regarding the Syrian opposition, Dumas said that this opposition is multifaceted, and that countries like Qatar and Saudi Arabia are involved in the fighting taking place in Syria against the legitimate government. He said that Israel plays a role in what is happening in Syria. Dumas stressed that there's massive propaganda being spread regarding events in Syria, and all news reports images coming from one source, causing the French public, which sees these images every day, to form a terrible impression that there are bad guys represented by the Syrian government who are killing. And over here, there's another article on the same issue, that says that Berlinski, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Western allies orchestrated the Syrian crisis. Former U.S. National Security Advisor Zebigniew, I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong, Brzezinski, said that the ongoing crisis in Syria has been orchestrated by Saudi Arabia and Qatar and their Western allies. There's Mr. Brzezinski there. So you can see why I threw this on the back end of my book there on Psychic Research. So that's enough of that, and enough of this video. You can go online and get these little journals, maybe $5, $10 on like Abe used books or Alibis, or there's several used book sites that are pretty big. And read about this research. I didn't read you everything. Here's one here. Middlesex County, Massachusetts. I'd come into Boston for the day, leaving at home my daughter, a young woman of 20, who has remarkable psychic powers, but refuses to let them have expression or even to believe in them. She used to write automatically, but has refused to do so for months past. So anyways, suddenly during my absence, she felt an overpowering desire to write. She got pencil and paper and sat down. This is what she wrote. Danger is near you, but do not be afraid. You are protected. Thank you for watching my videos, and I do them because I want to share the information that I read. It doesn't do me any good to be learning all this stuff and to not tell anybody, because I believe it's concerning. everything from spying on the people to verifiable cell phone towers and Syrian chaos in Middle East all being planned. General Wesley Clark, his videos are on YouTube. He talks about it was all planned. So they're deceiving us, and they know about psychic research and communicating with the other side. And as we already know, they know about remote viewing. So there's a lot that they know that most people don't know. And that's why I do these videos. And thank you for watching again. And I'll get motivated and do another one soon. Rick Markle.